Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. When you graduate from Stanford, people expect you to build a tech company, or that too in high tech, that is AI. So when my peers are building Zeptos, I'm here talking about environmental sustainability. The reason is environmental sustainability is, if not as important as AI, maybe more, because it impacts every one of us without any barrier to economic situation or social. So before we start and I introduce you to our panel, let me start with a small joke regarding sustainability. Why did the sustainability report go to therapy? Anyone? Why did the sustainability report go to therapy? Yeah. Because it had too many issues and couldn't take any action. So seriously, this is exactly what we're here to address today. How we can move beyond just reporting and talking about sustainability and turn it into a real actionable, impactful actions, particularly focusing on net zero strategies. We have with us Deepak Jain, who is the chairman ESG committee, Delhi Management Association. We also have Dr. Garima, who's associate professor and head School of Business Environment, Center for Business and Human Rights and Center for Responsible Business Advisory, IICA. Anyone wants to take that question? The challenges with regards to sustainability.
So very good afternoon, everyone. I'll just stick to the question, though I have something else to talk. But when we talk about challenges, and I represent a government here, so I'll just share the feedback that we receive from the corporate world in terms of challenges in reporting. The biggest challenge is that there are multiple frameworks available in the world. The Indian companies are crossing boundaries. They have been doing already, IR, GRI and all that. And now we have our BRSR. So we often receive that, there are multiple reporting points. The second big challenge which we receive is that sustainability reporting requires, it can't be done from just a one department or a sustainability head of the organization. It requires a cross-departmental information, right? And the third one is about, there were a lot of initially, before BRSR, which is in India reporting format, there were a lot of issues that the reporting includes a lot of good English, so it shows how good, a person is in writing. So there was a lack of data. So the problem was to have a comparative, analysis of different reporting and come up with a conclusion that which is good. And one specific challenge which I want to speak on also is about there's no sector specific reporting requirements. Each sector is unique, right? And there might be a need to ask for specific information from a specific sector. We have BRSR, we have national guidelines on responsible business conduct, which is very, very generic, which has 9 principles, which ask a lot of information. So the point is, certainly it's very, very good, and we all should be proud of our reporting. And believe me, if we adhere to the BRSR in spirit, we are able to showcase the company's contribution towards CSR, towards SDGs, very, very big ambitions, the company's vision, mission, and everything. So just to be very precise, I believe that these are the 4 specific challenges. And one is also about, there was no one, dashboard which is available, which can showcase that how companies are doing. There are a lot of consultants, organizations who are working on this, but recently, just few days back only, we released a dashboard on the top 1,000 listed companies that provides you a unique analysis of their sustainability reporting. Because unless we don't know who is best in where, it's very important to learn from each other. It's something very simple that, you can only dream alone, but you can't do alone, right? So for that, you need the best practices, you need the data comparability, you need the specific information on material issues which are very industry specific. So I think these are the major points I would like to add here.
Thank you. So yeah, sustainability is a complex sort of a problem, and it penetrates almost every industry that we have. Uh, Deepak ji, can you talk a bit about management practices and how leadership is transforming this whole sustainability goals that CSR or individual companies have?
Yeah, of course. First of all, thanks for inviting me here. Of course, leadership is important, and leadership is helping towards moving, facing the sustainability challenges, towards moving the net zero, taking all the necessary steps for sustainable development. Here, I would like to refer to the topic. In fact, when I read that topic, I really felt good. And when I was discussing to myself that reporting to action. So far, we have been doing various conferences, various sustainability reporting, but whether we are taking enough actions, whether we are taking actions to move to the net zero. Even, for example, we do various conferences. I'm heading ESG chairman committee of DMA. We also did various conferences during last 15 minutes. But as Praveen ji was telling me last time that these all conferences, they also add few carbon footprints. So, so are we taking any action to balance those carbon footprints? It is very important. It is very important that we take action now. It is time to action. For example, we did one self and sustainable roundtable conference last month, and there the conclusion was that we are doing these conferences at professional level here in various banquets and all. But are we touching the 50% of the section of the society? Like, are we touching the homemakers? Are we guiding them? I mean, I live in a high-rise society, and there, I mean, it is a perfectly educated society. All the professionals are there, but there, I mean, their awareness level is very less. I mean, the homemakers, they are not taking in their mind this sustainability. They are not concerned. For example, for waste segregation, they are not taking effective actions segregating the waste in. Many times government push them, कुछ दिनों के लिए होता है फिर खत्म हो जाता है. Then senior citizens is a lot chunk of population. After retirement, they are not doing anything. We should involve these people. We should doing some sessions at the high-rise societies. We have a lot of high-rise societies in Delhi, NCR, everywhere, so that they can take action for water conservation. Only homemakers can take action. So action is required at different sections of the society. For youth, we need to approach the youth in the colleges, in schools. We need to approach even the underprivileged community. We need to educate them. So action is required now from all these discussions, reporting, and all. And we need to include all the sections of the society to take action to move towards net zero.
Thank you. Yeah, you mentioned about carbon footprint for conferences like this. Actually, there's a startup called Climbs, which tries to go to a net zero, make any conference wherever in the world, make it a net zero. So there are certain like tech companies also, startups also now trying to solve this climate change problem and sustainability problem. Let me move to Alstom and discuss about Alstom's commitment and sustainable mobility and what they are thinking and what you are thinking about trying to think of this like complex problem that is sustainability and how you are thinking about it.
Thank you. I think I'll start with a quick introduction to Alstom. Like, if people in the room are not aware of who the company is and what we do, Alstom is a French leader in sustainable mobility. Now, we build, to put it very simply, we build transport and mobility solutions. So right from passenger trains to metros to freight locomotives, we have the entire spectrum of urban mobility solutions, right? So I think before I start talking too much about Alstom and what we do in terms of zero emissions and mobility, I want to speak a little bit about the transport sector and the emissions from the sector. Right now, we've spoken, because I'm representing industry on the panel, transportation as a sector and as an industry contributes about a quarter of global emissions, right? So we're talking 25% emissions coming from one industry alone. So the opportunity for the industry to actually make a fairly large impact on climate change and on the subject of net zero emissions is immense. Right? Mobility needs are growing with urbanization. So the opportunities available to us to make a substantial and sizable contribution is huge. Now let's come a little bit to rail, right? Because we've got multiple transport modes. You've got cars, you've got airplanes, you've got metro solutions, you've got passenger rail, right? Rail, if I club all urban transit solutions, even when they're not fueled on renewable energy, is the cleanest mode of transport. Right? It's about 12% less energy consumption. It emits about 5 to 10% less greenhouse gas emissions compared to cars or airplanes on a per passenger kilometer basis, right? So the essential product that the company is involved in by nature is sustainable, right? Now, rail is the only mode of transport that is already broadly electrified. I'm sure everyone that is following the government and its current investments in rail would see that we've got very, very buoyant plans to actually invest in the rail infrastructure in the country. And with increasing adoption of renewable energy, we're taking this mode of transport actually very, very close to zero emissions on a wheel-to-wheel basis, right? So I think all of us need to wake up to the potential of rail and urban transportation on delivering on sustainability goals for any country. Right now, I'm going to come a little more I want to just build on that kind of a macro context on the product and its sustainability profile to coming to what Alstom does. Right now, as a company and as a vision statement, we're committed to carbon neutrality in transport. So when I say that we work on the full spectrum of transport solutions, we are focused in terms of our R&D and innovation in how do we make rail an already sustainable solution even more sustainable, right? So we're looking at reducing energy consumption from our rail fleet by 25%. We're the only company in the world today that actually has a train running on hydrogen, a clean fuel. There's a lot of discussion happening on hydrogen as a clean fuel. We're the only company in the world today that actually has a train on hydrogen running in commercial service in Germany, right? The conversations are still maturing. At some point, we'd love to bring that technology to India, but our infrastructure is not mature for that right now, right? But that said, our product portfolio itself, we are very focused on making that clean and green. In terms of material usage in our products, we've committed to 100% eco-design, which basically, eco-design is a phrase that basically says that your material usage in your products are designed for recyclability, right? So the metros that we are building today for Bombay, for example, compared to some of the coaches that we built for Delhi, the Delhi metro has been built by us, are far more recyclable with a lot more circular economy principles in our material choices, for example, for the Bombay metro, and this will only increase, right? And then, of course, in terms of the energy we use to build our trains, now train building is not a very energy intensive process compared to some other industries like steel making or the like, but that said, even when we are building our trains, the objective is that 100% of our operations are going to be fueled by renewables, right? Now, when you come to making statements like that, you know that you need an ecosystem maturity to develop on that. Today in India, if 70% of the country's profile remains on coal, then I as a company can't just go and say that I can move my operations to 100% renewable the next day, because neither do I have that kind of grid availability or energy storage facilities, right? But it's an entire ecosystem change, policy change that will need to happen. As a company, we kind of committed to, up our game when it comes to all of those aspects as far as our business profile is concerned and what we work in, right? But I do want to touch on one aspect that is not often spoken about, and we don't reflect on it often enough, especially when we're discussing CSR, and we are in a CSR universe event. So I do want to kind of focus more on the social aspects of rail. Right now, rail directly contributes and is connected to a lot of social issues that we see, whether that's air quality, whether that's traffic congestion, and the like, right? We're in September right now. Come October, November, everyone in this room who is from Delhi will know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the kind of emissions and pollution all of us will face, right? Now, vehicular emissions has a very large part of contribution, to air quality, right? Now, we're a growing nation, right? All of us celebrate the growth that India is seeing and the urbanization that India is seeing. All of us look forward to the economic progress that will bring for the country. We all celebrate that, right? And so do we, right? I think just as conscious citizens, we need to be aware that with that growth, we are looking at a compounding of few problems, and vehicular emissions is one of them, right? Because today, as our cities are growing, urban spatial planning is not being done in a manner where public transport is sufficiently integrated. And in metros like Delhi, where we do have, a great metro network, and perhaps this problem is a little less in Delhi compared to some other tier 2, tier 3 cities where we are building metros. But, we have a host of other issues that actually prohibit people from using public transport. So government ne to metros bana di, but if you and me as conscious citizens are not actually using the metro and still choose to use our cars, then we're not going to have any impact really on reducing vehicular emissions and therefore pollution and the like, right? So those are the kind of social issues that we are looking to address through some of the work that the company does in the CSR space. And I want to talk to you about a few areas, right? I address. There is a safety issue that prohibits people from perhaps using metros, right? There is last mile access. If you have a 5-kilometer walk to a metro station, you're very naturally inclined to just sit in your car and are like, chodo, kaun jayega, right? Who's going to find another mode of transport to get to a metro station and then use a metro, right? So you have issues like that. And those are some of the social problems that we've chosen to pick up to solve. I just want to speak very briefly about two programs, or rather, like more than programs, I want you to look at these as areas of investment that the company is committed to move from just, I would say, reporting to action, right? Number one, we know the problem is too big for us to solve, right? Our expertise is technology and building trains, and that's where, in terms of gearing up our technology to be even greener and smarter, that's where most of our R&D is focused on as our business. So we want to invite this very vibrant startup ecosystem that we have in India to actually help us solve some of these problems that exist in the adoption of mass transit solutions, right? And also, as a broader goal, acceleration of mobility solutions, whether that's electric vehicles, whether that's infrastructure, anything that can help bridge that last mile access gap, that I can take it, which shows up as one of the biggest deterrents to the use of public transport, right? So we've got two flagship programs that work on that. The first is our support, like I said, of innovation. We've partnered with IIM Bangalore and NSRCL, their incubation cell, to actually build these programs for us. We've done 2 successful cohorts with them. We're in the process of launching a 3rd cohort by the end of the year to really identify who these brilliant minds in the country are that are actually working in this space, and see how we can support them, not just with seed grants, but with other programs to help them scale their solutions so that it leads to more adoption of public transport, right? Secondly, the other program, again, looks at 2 social issues. One is last mile access, where we are deploying eco-friendly solutions, that is e-rickshaws, as last mile connectivity solutions to Bangalore Metro. Everyone knows what the traffic woes in Bangalore are. And we are looking at women drivers, right? Because we also want to bring in inclusiveness and safety issues. So we have women drivers actually deploying and actually riding these so that women feel safer, that at night when they need to use a metro, they don't mind hopping into a woman-driven auto rickshaw to actually reach the metro station, right? So I think to quickly just sum up all that I've spoken about, as a corporate, on the business front, our product is sustainable. We're looking to make it even more greener and smarter. On a social front, we're looking at working on areas that will lead to increased adoption of public transport, because that has a direct correlation on reducing emissions. I'll pass on, I think, to my...
Thank you. So do Alstom has a net zero goal for India?
So we've set net zero goals more globally at this stage. You know, we're not a listed entity in India, so we've not matured to an extent where we've defined net zero goals at region or country levels. But as a global conglomerate, we have defined, like I said, our vision is to get to carbon neutrality in transport. And we're looking at that across our value chain, right from products. So scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, you name it, across the value chain, we're looking at how we can get closer to that.
Thank you. We also have with us Praveen ji, who is group head at Spark Minda and heads their sustainability and CSR domain, to get more deeper understanding of another industry and how they are thinking about sustainability and net zero goals.
Thank you very much for the question. So when we talk about sustainability, we quite often think that it's got to do with environment, पर्यावरण. हमने पर्यावरण के बारे में सोच लिया, थोड़ा बहुत कुछ कर लिया और sustainability आ गई. Do you think that's sustainability? That's one of those very small parts of sustainability. What is without sustainability in your life, in our lives? What moves without sustainability? Can we ever think of it? Can you think of your lives, your birth, your basic requirements without sustainability? There's nothing without that. Well, how much time would I have to speak? 3 minutes. No, that's completely fine. So, आप में से कुछ लोगों ने, those who are looking at trees and leaves, आपने देखा है पत्ते का रंग थोड़ा बदलते हुए? वो जो बचपन में हम पत्ते को हरा देखते थे, वो जो हरियाली उस पत्ते में होती थी, वो कहीं ना कहीं कम हो गई है. Sustainability. No, I'm not talking this is about sustainability, but try thinking about it. सफेद कबूतर उड़ते देखा है आसपास? कबूतर का रंग ही बदल गया है. मेरे घर के पास एक गंगा नदी बहती थी. I used to see that from my house in Patna. I come from Bihar, and the Ganga Nadi used to kind of touch our houses, but वो इतनी दूर चली गई. अब वहाँ पे एक क्या कहते हैं उसको, बॉम्बे में वो जो है समुद्र के किनारे मरीन ड्राइव, तो एक मरीन ड्राइव बन गया है वहाँ. तो मरीन ड्राइव पे लोग अब रात को झाल मुड़ी खाने के लिए आते हैं. ठीक है, नदी दूर चली गई है, हमें दिखती नहीं है अब. You try looking at some of the issues. The global temperature rise by 2 degrees. The heat waves has tripled. If you look at your country, India, there are 26 states which are disaster prone, and the frequency of disasters have even increased. If you look at the state Uttarakhand, if you look at the flood frequencies and its intensities, it has again 1.5 times comparison last 10 years. Carbon emission is at its peak, highest level pe hai apna emission. And when we talk about corporate, we talk about sustainability, we generally and mostly we are focusing on something called reporting. We are limited to something called, which was BRR, now has become BRSR, Some much glorified reports are called sustainability report as per the GRI index. And even if you would like to make it further glorified, you can go get into the assessments. You can go for a declaration of SBTI, and you can also think of CDP, where you get an ranking which can impact your share prices. Even your investors will invest in you if you have these ratings, these rankings with you. Otherwise, they will not. So, where are we heading to? Are we trying to head towards some of the compliances? If I talk of compliances, very recently we did something on EPR, extended producer responsibility, and many of my friends from the sector, they were saying that what are you doing to convince your customer when you are a B2B kind of a setup? When your customer is expecting that you are, if you are not EPR compliant, my colleagues are sitting here and they know it. If you are not EPR compliant, you cannot do business with us. And because you have to do business with us, and that is why you have to go for a declaration to CPCB, and this is how you are in a hurry, and you go and you did it by thinking what? Plastic is the poison. Is plastic a poison? Can you replace plastic from your lives? Think from head to toe. Whatever you have today that you are wearing, is there a plastic in that? The mobile phone that you are carrying with yourself, can you replace plastic from this? Plastic is one of the most durable, one of the most economical solution. But we have deglorified it, and we are talking about EPR today. Another aspect of sustainability, मुझे ऑर्गेनाइजर शायद भगा देंगे, मुझे यहाँ सस्टेनेबिलिटी के लिए बारे में बात करने के लिए कहा गया है और मैं प्लास्टिक को एडवोकेट कर रहा हूँ. नहीं, मैं प्लास्टिक को बिल्कुल एडवोकेट नहीं कर रहा. It takes around 400 years, all of us know, to dispose of a plastic. What could be your appropriate use of it? What could be the responsible use of it? If you talk about sustainability, your responsibility comes first. As an organization, we are also trying to align our sustainability goals with the Panchamrit goals of Government of India 2030, which talks about solarization, which has to be at least of the total consumption 50% from the renewable sources. It talks about the non-fossil fuel and its intensity to be increased by 500 gigawatt. It's about carbon intensity, CO2 emission reduction by 50%, intensity reduction by 50%, and of course reaching to net zero target that we are talking about, which is of 2070. We are also trying to align that. We've been working towards carbon emission reductions. We are trying to look at our intensity with the kind of nature of business that we have. We are an automotive manufacturer. We have done scope 1, scope 2. We are also doing scope 3. Sometimes you try thinking, will scope 3 ever end? Is there any end of scope 3 emission? You would not find an end of it technically. Yeah. Therefore, what you have to do, if you have a life and you want it to be carbon neutral, you know how much carbon do you emit? If a tree stay for 40 years, there are 7 trees that is needed for you to make you carbon neutral. The kind of emissions that you have on an average. Can you think of going and getting these plantations done, and just not the plantation done, but to retain these trees for a period of 40 years so that you become carbon neutral? We are talking about 2070. We are today in 2025. आज आप पेड़ लगाएंगे तो 2070 में शायद आपका लाइफ कार्बन न्यूट्रल हो पाएगा 2065-70 के बीच में. So these are my thoughts. We are also working on water conservation. जब water conservation की हम बात करते हैं तो हम दो ही चीज सोचते हैं. एक सोचते हैं ground water harvesting, एक सोचते हैं roof water harvesting. There are many other things that one needs to look at when you are in kind of a manufacturing kind of a setup. You look at your water uses, per head uses of water, and how do you reduce the intensity of that water uses. That's also something critical to be thought. Your consumption and your dispose of, that has to be balanced. How much water are you disposing of? Can you not recycle it? Can you become a zero discharge entity? Can you also look at the leakage of the water that you have in and around your factories? Can you have much productive uses of it? And likewise, you can think about waste too. I have enough to talk, but I'm sorry I've taken a little more time, and I'll stop here.
Thank you. Thank you for giving that perspective. Let me go to Professor Garima to discuss a bit about policy and regulatory framework and what the government are thinking about the net zero goal that we have.
All right, so let me also take this opportunity to tell that I represent Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, which is a think tank of Ministry of Corporate Affairs. And we provide the policy and the technical assistance to the ministry, and we also try to bridge the gap between the corporate and the regulator, listening from the corporates, what are the issues, and then taking forward and doing the needful. Now, if we talk about the policy interventions, I would always begin with saying that we had earlier national voluntary guidelines on economic, environment, and financial responsibility from 2011, right? Which says that businesses have to think more than just economic responsibility, also think about environment, think about, other social parameters also. With that, SEBI came up with the previous BRR, Business Responsibility Reporting, which was mandatory. Then there was a need felt, as I mentioned, that in the 2018, we started updating NVGs to NGRBC. Now, NGRBC is a national guidelines on responsible business conduct. It is a beautiful voluntary recommendatory document duly endorsed by our Honorable Prime Minister, asking all businesses, irrespective of their size, nature, in the specific sector, to come forward and follow that. Now, what are those guidelines? Those guidelines have specific 9 principles covering from all environment specific goods and services has to be in a safe and a sustainable manner, right? And that covers like all the concept which even Mr. Praveen talked about EPR, life cycle approach and all that. We have specific principles talking about, social dimensions, which is business and human rights. Now, in the today's time, we are going forward and talking that businesses also have certain, responsibility towards human rights, value chain aspect, supply chain, what is happening to the last mile, from where we are sourcing, how we are treating those contractual and, those kind of employees. Then we have some specific principles on transparency, integrity, public policy, that the businesses have to think about. And the beauty of all the 9 principles are that it says the governance shall ensure, which means the tone at the top has to be right? Now, these are the guidelines. On these guidelines, the SEBI came forward with the BRSR, which is now mandatory for 1,000 listed companies. And then now we even have the concepts like BRSR core, which even ask for assurances, like initially for 150 top listed companies. So it's like, I am disclosing my own answer sheet. I will definitely say that I'm pretty good. Maybe if I'm little modest, I'll say I need some improvement here, but I won't fail myself, right? Nobody will do that. And therefore, the concept of assurance comes into picture where there is a third party involved in that. So with all this kind of a policy framework, the intent is that the businesses should adapt, sustainability, within their operations, practices and processes, right? Which means that they are not only here to disclose, but they have to ensure that they are implementing it. How they can, demystify this ESG and comply with the sustainability aspect. This is what we are strongly advocating from think tank, our IICA. Now, if we talk about, okay, so this is policy interventions, right? Now, let's come to a real challenge. Big companies are already doing all good or compliance with the good reporting. Now, MSMEs are coming to us that why we should do it, how we should do it, where is the money, where is the resource, where is the expertise. And therefore, IICA and the other, institutions, we are hand-holding those companies. We are doing a lot of capacity building programs to sensitize those MSMEs, to handhold them, to make them understand that if they start doing it, taking a lead without being a mandate, what are the benefits? And also to the big businesses, the mid-sized businesses, we are trying to tell them that there is a strong business case. All these good things, we all know that this has a huge business case in terms of profit maximization, in terms of your, reaching to the communities where your product was never even known to that. So we have been talking since last 10 years about the CSR and how it can be strategic. Similarly, when we talk about now sustainability, like my co-panelists, both of them have highlighted, that if we talk about plastic, so I'll just add, Praveenji, that it's not only what we are wearing, we are even breathing, eating and drinking microplastics, right? Which is from 70,000 to 1,21,000 microplastics we breathe, eat and drink every year. And we are all very much conscious about the fact that, even the school children are being taught about SDGs, and they are doing a project that how they can individually contribute. So I mean, the importance is well accepted, right? We understand that we have to act now. Now, when we are talking in these forums, the intent is that businesses, how effectively they can do it. It's not about just compliance in letter, but compliance in spirit, ensuring that there is an impact. There is something, which can be measured, which can be showcased, or rather, let me say, which can be benchmarked. Very interesting question. Our own Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and the previous one of the senior officer asked me that we talk about this reducing carbon footprint and this thing. What is the ideal? Some company is asking if me that ideally how much should I reduce carbon footprint? So do we have any benchmark? There is no benchmark. I mean, we cannot say that this much is good or that much is bad, because it is ever aspiring, I would say. If you are here, you should aspire to be here. If you are here, you should aspire to be here. So that is what the government has also announced, the net zero target. There are some industries, and they are frankly telling me that it is impossible to meet the net zero target. And they are being very frank, and we know that, right? But how they are, offsetting that particular thing. So there are a lot of such issues: offsetting, mitigation, reduction. Each word has a very different and a very technical perspective to it. So yeah, maybe I'll stop it here.
Yeah, thank you for that comprehensive overview. So we have 3-4 minutes left. So I wanted to do a quick rapid fire, few questions, and get everyone's one word or one phrase answer to it. So first is, what's the biggest barrier to India's net zero ambition?
Biggest barrier is again the action by the action and awareness. We need to create more and more awareness, as I said earlier also.
Okay.
I don't think we have
awareness and action.
We have been able to create awareness. We can create awareness through advertisement, through communications, through FM radio, through print media, through ringtones. We have to create awareness through various means, whatever possible, to all the masses who are living and not attending these conferences. It is very important.
Intention, compliance and spirit.
Behavioral change. Yeah. I think each of us, we are waiting for big scale impacts. We don't realize how small changes can actually accumulate to big impacts.
Irresponsible individual responsibility.
Interesting. Okay, the second one, what's the most impactful way for Indian companies to reduce their carbon footprint? Like one word, is it like adopting renewables, efficiency, what it is?
They need to check, their production process, how much carbon footprints they are adding. And they, of course, need to switch to the renewable energy sources. And it depends on sector to sector. If it is a refinery company, then they have to see they are shifting to the renewable energy sources. If they are using kitni electricity वो use कर रहे हैं. So every sector needs to take steps according to their production process. Their yes.
Okay, thanks.
know where they are and where they want to be.
Thanks.
Brilliant. I think, Garima, I think took what I wanted to say, but there isn't a single answer to this, but what I would say is like a more balanced and a portfolio approach, right? You can't just look at one thing. You have to look at your entire value chain. And in terms of where you focus on making the most investments, like if you have data points that show where you create the maximum impact, then focus energies there. You're not going to be able to solve everything.
Adoption of green manufacturing.
Cool. Last one. In one word, what's the future of India's net zero journey? Is it innovation? Is it collaboration? Is it resilience?
It must be innovation. It must be innovation. We need to innovate to move to the net zero carbon through various techniques, maybe carbon capture technologies and other things. It must be innovation.
I believe we have to choose between A, B, and C. I will choose collaboration.
Sure.
I think I'll go with innovation.
I would not choose. I'll have to go with all three. Without all three, it's not possible.
Thank you all. Maybe we can have a question from audience if anyone has a pertinent. Just one question. Burning question, anyone? Sustainability is just too complex to think about, right? Or to make your mind in 40 minutes discussion. Okay, thank you everyone, and a special thank to all the panel members to discuss sustainability and what India's future net zero goals going to look like. Thanks.